tales for dark nights.
The following performance is a second-round entry in the 2016 Evil Idol competition, and you, the listener, get to help decide who wins. Like what you hear? Click the thumbs up. Don't care for it? Click the thumbs down. Good luck to all of our contestants.
She was watching me from the end of my bed. I could see her in the mirror. She looked so angry. She always looked angry now. I met her gaze and tried to smile, but I just didn't have it in me. Too much had happened. I busied myself with arranging my makeup, but I could feel her stare on me, and it only fueled the hurt and the guilt that had been festering within me. Finally, when I couldn't take it anymore, I spun in my chair and faced her. "What?" I hissed, careful to keep my voice low. I'd learned that it was easier to be mad at her constant judgment than the alternative, and I'd embraced it. "I've already said I'm sorry. What else do you want from me?" "The truth," she said. "Just tell me what you guys did." "You already know it all. Why do I have to say it?" "How could you do this to me?" "It wasn't my fault," I said, but it sounded hollow, even to me. I couldn't look at her anymore, so I dropped my eyes to the floor and took a few deep breaths, trying to gain control over the flood of emotions that threatened to drown me. She shook her head, her hands balling into fists in her lap. "You didn't have to. You could have said no to him." I couldn't. I turned back around and grabbed my brush to drag it roughly through my hair. "How could I? He was so upset. Did you want me to just tell him to go away?" "Yes!" she cried, springing to her feet. She paced behind me, agitation and anger replacing her sadness. "You were my best friend." "Mandy." My voice cracked, but I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." "You always said you hated him," she said accusingly. "That's just... I did. I do. He's... well, you know." It was one of the few times words failed me. I couldn't make her understand why it had happened. I didn't even know myself. It had all been so in the moment, no time to think. I just went along with it, and I lived with the regret ever since. She was right behind me, and I could feel the fury burning off of her. I wanted to try and justify myself to her, to try and make her understand, but I knew there was no way to. What I'd done was beyond inexcusable. What I'd done was unforgivable. "I'm sorry, Mandy," I said again weakly. "Tell me what you did with him, Anna," was the only response I got. "Why?" I buried my face in my hands. "You already know. Don't make me say it. Please." Her fingernails dug sharply into the flesh of my upper arms, and her face was a contorted mask of rage. She yanked me to my feet and gave me a hard shake. "Tell me!" My knees buckled, and I sagged in her grip. She let me go, watched me collapse to my knees and curl up, and she sneered with such disgust. You want me to feel sorry for you or something? After what you did to me? No, then tell me. He's my brother. I had to. He killed me. Her words hung heavily between us. Tiny razor blades that sliced into me every time they were uttered. She sank to the floor in front of me, hugging herself, and stared me down through hate-filled tears. He killed me, and you helped bury my body. I apologized over and over the same way I'd been apologizing since I'd woken up a week before and found her sitting on my bed in the middle of the night. The same way I'd been apologizing since I'd helped my brother wrap her in a tarp and bury her in the woods just outside of town 2 weeks ago. The guilt had been crushing me slowly, stealing my appetite, my sleep, my ability to think clearly, but I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone. I couldn't even say it aloud to Mandy. "Why do you do it, Anna?" she asked plaintively, and I could hear how not knowing was tearing her apart. "I don't know," I said, and it was an honest answer. I had thought back to that night 1,000,000 times and asked myself the same thing. I'd come home late from school. I'd gone upstairs and I'd seen them. My older brother, Caleb, standing over his bed. Over Mandy. She was lying so still, staring vacantly out of his bedroom door at me. I panicked. I screamed. So did he. But Mandy just lay there. He wouldn't tell me what happened, just that it had been an accident. I'd never seen him so scared. And then he was telling me what to do, and I just did it. He was my brother. He needed me. He kept telling me so. It was an accident. An accident. There were marks on Mandy's neck, dark and red. And I held her in the back seat of Caleb's car, rocking her, apologizing to her. I didn't know where we were going. He drove so fast, left the town behind, and we went up into the woods. When he parked and got out the tarp, I screamed at him, tried to tell him to turn around, but he said that I was a part of it now. I was just as responsible as he was. At 17, I could be charged as an adult, just like him. I'd go to prison. I'd be a murderer. It felt like hours while he dug. I held Mandy close, tried to ignore how cool she already felt. And I reminded her of how we met in 2nd grade, when Mrs. Fort Worth paired us up for an assignment, and that had just been it. Instant best friends. I kept talking, like it would somehow change what was going on. I rambled about the plans we'd been making. College was coming up. We were going to be roommates, remember? We were going to have the same major, take all the same classes, join a sorority. We were going to be sisters. I didn't let Caleb touch Mandy. He tried, but I slapped and scratched him until he let me struggle to get her out of the car on my own. I laid her so gently on the tarp, smoothing the hair away from her face. She hated it when it got into her eyes and had always wanted to cut it short, but her mom never let her. It was the first thing she planned to do once we moved away. I tucked the tarp around her like a blanket, and I kissed her forehead, and my tears spilled down onto her cheeks. Caleb got impatient, told me to go wait in the car while he finished. I couldn't watch him put her in the ground. I couldn't watch him cover her up. And then we left her there, even though she was still afraid of the dark. And we drove home. Caleb reminded me once that if I ever told anyone, I'd be in just as much trouble as him. And then he didn't speak of it again. I buried you, I said aloud for the first time. I was shaking, crying close to hysterics. And when Mandy shushed me gently and put her hand over mine, I clutched it desperately. I'm so sorry. I was scared. He's my brother. It was all so fast. Please don't hate me. I don't hate you, she said, and that just made me sob harder. But Anna, I can't forgive you until you make this right. They'll take Caleb away. Definitely. Everyone will hate me. Maybe. She put an arm around me and squeezed. But I won't. We sat for a while, in a silence only broken by my sniffling, and when I had finally calmed down enough to speak again, I gave her one last hug. I'm sorry, Mandy. I know. She touched her fingertips to the bruising at her neck and smiled sadly. Somehow, I found my feet and managed to get to the bedroom door. I clung to it for a minute and looked back at Mandy, who nodded with encouragement. I took a deep, steadying breath, and I called downstairs. Mom, can you come up here? I need to talk to you.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, don't forget to cast your vote for this contestant via a thumbs up or thumbs down vote. By doing so, you'll help us determine who will become the next permanent member of our voice acting team. At the close of voting on August 15th, based on your votes, the top 25 contestants will advance to the third round, which begins September 1st, based entirely on your votes. Thank you for voting and for helping to spread the word. You're listening to Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I'm Steve Taylor, host of Chilling Tales, the podcast, encouraging you to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Chilling Tales